Russians send fighter jet to Ukraine border. Russian troops are gathering close to the border with Ukraine, a move that has sparked concern across the West. Although it remains far from certain whether it will take an action that could lead to a European or even world war. U.S. officials said Friday that Russian fighter jets flew into Ukrainian airspace a handful of times over the last 24 hours, in what one called a continued provocation of the heightened tensions in the region. The officials said it's not clear what the intent was, but the aircraft could have been testing Ukrainian radar or making a show of force. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to talk publicly about the issue. The flights come as Russia increases military along the Ukraine border, including moving a broad array of fixed-wing and rotary aircraft, infantry, and armored troops. These sorties inflame worries about a potential Russian military incursion into Ukraine, a move that has sparked concern across the West. Washington has reaffirmed its support for Ukraine in light of Russia's destabilizing actions in the region. Open conflict is threatening to break out again. A huge concentration of forces has been observed in recent weeks on the Ukrainian-Russian border. At the same time, Moscow warns the West that any deployment of military forces in the region will force it to take emergency measures to ensure its security. John Kirby, a Pentagon spokesman, said U.S. officials have let Russian Defense Ministry officials know that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin would like to speak to his counterpart, Russia Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. There has been no response yet, Kirby said. Hot information war. Creeping escalation. Yet this fact has not discouraged many in the West from treating the precarious post-Minsk conditions as a new status quo, when in fact Minsk produced nothing more than a highly contested and continuously flouted armistice. Despite numerous rounds of subsequent negotiation, two at summit level, the gap in perspective about what the accords stipulate and what obligations they entail has not been narrowed one iota. Alongside the belief in the emergence of a status quo, a second belief has taken root: that Russia is content with this status quo and simply seeks its ratification. This belief rests on two sound assumptions and two erroneous ones. Russia must immediately cease its aggression in eastern Ukraine and end its occupation of Crimea, said U.S. diplomat Rodney Hunter. We call on Russia to withdraw its forces from Ukraine, cease its support for its proxies and other armed groups, and implement all of the commitments it made under the Minsk agreements. A joint declaration condemning ongoing instability in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions was issued by European members of the Security Council, as well as Germany, which along with France co-sponsored the Minsk Accords between Moscow and Kiev. By the use of force against the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, Russia is clearly violating fundamental principles of international law, the declaration states. We again call on the Russian Federation to immediately stop fueling the conflict by providing financial and military support to the armed formations it backs, and we remain deeply concerned about the presence of Russian military equipment and personnel in the non-government controlled areas of Ukraine. Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, rejected the Western condemnation and accused Ukraine of not implementing Minsk Accord measures, with backing from French and German protectors. He also accused Kiev of total indifference to Donbass residents. His German counterpart Christoph Heusgen, who took part in the Minsk negotiations under Chancellor Angela Merkel's government, said the Russian ambassador failed to mention Moscow's shortcomings on the removal of heavy weapons under the accords. Until today, the Russian heavy weapons have not been withdrawn from the line of command and control in violation of the Minsk agreements, Heusgen said. Without access to the border between Ukraine and Russia, an area that is beyond the control of Kiev, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe OSCE monitoring mission to the region cannot do its job, Heusgen added. Therefore Russia can, day after day, ship soldiers and armament into Luhansk and Donetsk, he said.
I'd done 3 tours of Afghanistan, and that's where I became friendly with the Estonian forces, where I'd done quite a few sort of jobs with the Estonians, EOD teams. I kind of learned the way that the Estonians were very professional. What did they learn from us? Humour.
We can show them how it's best to fight in this kind of terrain that we have in Estonia. We don't have, at the moment yet, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, although we are building that capability as well. So practically we can learn how to train and fight along those capabilities.